Hi everyone, welcome to the History and Social Science Week 2, Day 2 for grades 6 through 8. My name is Ms. Howard, but I'll introduce myself a little bit later. This video is for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders on Day 2, but as you'll see a little bit later, on Thursday for Day 4, we'll have some special content for each of you. So I want to welcome you all here, and I'm going to go ahead and share you my screen so we can get into the lesson. So we are going to be finding reliable sources in an age of information. So all grades, all historians do this, and we're going to talk a lot today about finding sources that are reliable in today's age. But for U.S. history in 6th and 7th, we will look at some history stuff when we get to Thursday. So sit back and enjoy. So to introduce myself and my partner in crime, who you'll be seeing some videos from later. Her name is Miss Green and I'm Miss Howard. We're both social science and history teachers at Albert Hill Middle School. Go Tigers! So I wanted to kind of show you who we were. Before we really get started, I want to do a quick check-in. How are you feeling? Are you hungry? Do you need a snack? Do you need some water? Go ahead and take care of that now. You can pause me and come right back. Are you in a good space to be productive? Do you need to move? Maybe you need to get some headphones so you can hear me more clearly and not distracted by little brothers or little sisters? How are you mentally? Do you need to take a few deep breaths to kind of prepare yourself? Now's the time to do it. You can pause the video and do that. And if you learn nothing else today, I just want to remind you from Ms. Green, from myself, from all of your teachers, that we really care about you and we really miss you in this really hard time. And we want you to know that you matter and we've been thinking about you. So if that's all you get from this lesson, great. Please know we care about you. And I can't wait till we see some of you again. So today, we are going to go through the goals for today's lesson and some words of the day. You might be able to see them behind me on the board. We're going to talk about how to spot fake news. Then we're going to hear from Ms. Green. She's going to send us some videos about guided practice. And we're going to give you your mission for the day, and then we'll close. So are you ready? Great. Sounds good. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe at least 3 ways that you can check a news source or some rumor you might hear for its reliability. In other words, you're going to be able to spot the fake news. So for this lesson, what you need is some kind of writing utensil, whether that's a quill or whether that's a marker, I don't care, something to write with, some kind of paper, it doesn't matter if it's lined or not, and a brain that's ready to do some work. Here we go. Our first word of the day is going to be mass media. Then we're going to talk about bias and fake news. We're going to think about how this all fits together in the age of the internet. So I want you to write down the word mass media on your paper. Mass media. What is mass media? Mass media is a form of communication that's made to reach large audiences of people quickly. So can you think of some examples? What are some types of mass media? Well, when I think about mass media, I think about newspapers, whether it's the actual paper online. I think about anything involving the internet or social media. I think about like podcasts or radio news. And I think about TV too. All of those are types of mass media. Here's our next word, bias. Bias, write down the word bias. Here's the definition. Bias is the distorting of an observation or event due to a person's opinion or feelings about it. There's a lot of different kind of bias out there in the world, and I wonder if you can think of some examples. When have you experienced bias in your life? Well, I always think of a time in middle school when we would line up and choose teams for dodgeball, and I was actually really good at dodgeball, but I never got chosen because I was a girl. Like, that's some gender bias. That's a preference against girls when it comes to physical activity. Another one is I'm a little bit biased about where I like to sit in a class. When I go to learn, I want to be in the back of the class so I can see everything and everyone. That's my personal bias. But we're not talking about that when we use this word in media. In media bias, we're talking more about kind of like how you view something, your perspective on some kind of event or some kind of news that kind of shows you one side of the story. So take a look at this picture. This is a picture we like to use to teach bias. In this picture, it looks like someone has a gun to their head. But if you look at a different part of the picture, it looks like this soldier who's hurt is being helped with some water by a colleague. If you look at the whole picture, you see that that gun being near his head, like, it's just kind of a fluke, right? But when media in particular show us one side of the story, that's bias. When media kind of distort facts to show their personal preference, that's bias. The whole pic is the truth, but the pieces are the bias. Another way you can think about that is this political cartoon. So on the left, we see someone who's in an office place. It says editor on the door behind them, and he's saying, Trump just cured cancer, breaking news. And then on the right, we see the newspaper that they printed. It says, President's healthcare ignores heart disease. This is bias, right? Like, if it was true that any president had cured cancer, that should make the front headline. But instead, it only said that he ignored heart disease. That's showing that newspaper's bias against the president, right? So this is the kind of bias we see when we're talking about bias in media. Words really matter. So let's look at these examples. I'm going to read both A and B, and I want you to tell me which one you think is biased. Here we go, A. Read with me. Late this afternoon, we tracked down a member of the same bizarre cult the suspects belonged to. The woman claimed she knew nothing about the plans for an attack. Or B. Read with me. Late this afternoon, we spoke with a member of the same extremist group the suspects belonged to. The woman said she was not aware of plans to set off a bomb. Which one is more biased? Yeah, you're right. A. Why? Well, it uses a lot of languages that are like a lot of words that are loaded. We would call it loaded language. It makes you feel something, right? Like bizarre cult, not extremist group, but something weird and a cult. We think something negative, right? Or the plans for an attack, not just the plans for a bomb, right? Make you feel angry or scared. That's more biased, even if it was about the same fact, the same events. Okay, last word. Are you ready? Fake news. Now, I'm sure you have heard about this phrase before. Write down fake news. This is a definition for it. News, stories, or hoaxes that are made on purpose, deliberately created to deceive or misinform readers. It's all about false information. That's actually the better term for fake news, because these days fake news is kind of more political. But basically that means politicians have been using it to kind of attack each other. But we'll talk more about that later. So fake news is more than just bias. Like I said, you're deliberately trying to mislead someone and maybe try to cause harm. So here's an example. Breaking: Obama and Hillary now promising amnesty to any illegal that votes Democrat. This has a lot of loaded language and is clearly against Obama and against Hillary and probably against immigrants, right? Amnesty means like giving forgiveness to someone who broke a law. So when we think about amnesty for illegal immigrants, we think about amnesty for people who didn't have the right documents or follow the right process when they came to our country, right? But this word choice is a little leading. Another type of fake news is stuff like clickbait, right? Supermodels apply these 3 tricks to look young. Click to see what they are. Like anytime something online tells you click here, that's clickbait, right? That's not really news. It just looks like news to get you to read it, right? So what I want to do now is I'm going to play a video for you. And I want you to find at least 3 reasons why fake news is made. So what I want to do is I want to, this is a video from Ireland, I believe. And I want you to write down at least 3 reasons that explain why fake news might be created. Here we go.
With so much information at our fingertips, it can be easy to come across something online that isn't quite as accurate or reliable as it should be. This kind of information is often called fake news, but a better description might be false information because it affects more than news stories. Sometimes false information is shared, but no harm is meant. Like when a journalist hasn't checked the accuracy of their information or has made an honest mistake, or when false information is created for a bit of fun, like satirical websites and social media accounts which publish fake news stories for entertainment and parody. However, false information can also be deliberately created and shared for ulterior motives such as misleading or deceiving in order to influence people's views or actions, pushing a political agenda or causing confusion or harm, such as propaganda or false health information. Another reason false information is created is to make money through clickbait content. The economics of the internet means that the more clicks that a story gets, the more money online publishers make through advertising revenue. Social media is an ideal platform to share content and drive web traffic because the more outrageous, controversial, or dramatic the content is, the more likely it is to be shared and go viral. Sometimes stories that are not completely false can be distorted using misleading or sensationalist headlines in order to spread quickly on social media sites where only headlines and small snippets of the full article are displayed on audience news feeds. In the past, our news came from journalists and media outlets that are required to follow strict codes of practice, and this meant we could have a certain amount of trust in the news we received. However, the internet has enabled a whole new way to publish, share, and consume information which mostly falls outside of existing rules and regulations. Now, we get a lot of our news from social media sites and networks with little or no editorial process. As a result, false or misleading information can be made to look just like information from trusted websites using similar names, colours, brands, and web addresses, making it difficult to know who or what to trust online. Information overload, missing context, and
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video. If it went a little bit too fast to you, that's okay. You can just go back and watch it again. That's totally fine. So I'm going to go back to, oh, hey, it's me. I'm going to go back now to the PowerPoint where I was, and we're going to walk through and see how many of those reasons fake news is made you can find. So first, hopefully you caught that sometimes it's just made by accident. Sometimes journalists in this day and age have to go really fast because if you're the first one with the news, you get covered more, right? That means you may not fact check everything. You might be a little careless or make an accident. So that's one reason fake news is made. Another is that it might be made on purpose to confuse someone, to harm someone, or persuade them politically to support a certain person or not support a certain person or business. And then the third reason you might make fake news is clickbait, right? You've probably heard that term before, or you see it when you're scrolling on your social media. It's some kind of flashy headline or quizzes. It usually has a lot of numbers. Maybe it talks about making money. And this is all about ads. Every time you click and look at ads or look at a website, that website makes money from the company that's selling them the ad. So those are our words of the day. And I know that that seems like a lot, but I'm going to talk about why this stuff matters. Why are we even choosing this to talk about? Well, even before the coronavirus crisis that we're currently in, being able to tell the difference between real and trustworthy information and misinformation was really important. It might even be more important today. Have you ever been misled by something that someone said or something that you read or watched and maybe you shared it, but actually your information was wrong? I know for me that happens a lot when I look at pictures or when I'm on Instagram. For whatever reason, my brain just believes images way faster. So if you look at this picture, it says, don't believe everything you read on the internet, just because there's a picture with a quote next to it by Abraham Lincoln. Clearly, Abraham Lincoln would never say that because the internet was not invented. Computers were not invented then, but it looks real, right? It can be really confusing. Also, most American adults believe that this is a problem. They think that fake news confuses us about the basic facts. So here's an infographic from the Pew Research Center that has a percentage of adults who believe that made up or fake news has either caused a great deal of confusion, some confusion, or not much or no confusion. You can see almost two-thirds of people think that fake news causes a great deal of confusion. But Americans feel pretty confident in their ability to spot the news. So if you look at this pie chart from the same Pew Research Center, you'll see that almost half people believe that they're pretty confident in identifying some fake news. And of the other half, 40% are very confident. But those are adults. Are you confident in your ability to determine whether news is trustworthy or not? What tips do you know about how to spot some fake news? What do you know to do? Well, here are some ways to spot that false information. So we're going to finish up that video we started, and what I want you to do is watch for 6 ways that you can spot false information and write them down. Remember, if you need to pause as you go along and like go back in the video to watch it again, you're totally fine to do that. So again, let's look and write down 6 ways you can spot false information.
A general lack of understanding about how the internet works has compounded this issue. So how do we figure out what is accurate and reliable and what is false? The best defense against false information is to think critically about what you are reading, hearing, or seeing. Here are a couple of ways to help you to analyze content and make an informed choice. Take a closer look. Check the source of the story. Do you recognize the website? Is it a credible, reliable source? If you're unfamiliar with the site, look in the About section or find out more information about the author. Look beyond the headline. Check the entire article. Many fake news stories use sensationalist or shocking headlines to grab attention. Often the headlines of fake news stories are in all caps and use exclamation points. Check other sources. Are other reputable news or media outlets reporting on the story? Are there any sources in the story? If so, check if they are reliable or if they even exist. Check the facts. Fake news stories often contain incorrect dates or altered timelines. It is also a good idea to check when the article was published. Is it a current or an old news story? Check your biases. In general, we are all drawn to information that confirms our own beliefs and biases. Social media algorithms that are designed to give us news and information based on our own personal searches and interests make it harder to see beyond our own worldview. To really make an informed choice about information, we have to be aware that our own views or beliefs may affect our judgment of how accurate or reliable the piece of information is. Is it a joke? Satirical sites are popular online, and sometimes it is not always clear whether a story is just a joke or parody. Check the website. Is it known for satire or creating funny stories? Finally, before you believe it or share it, check your own instincts. Does it seem likely to be true? Is it accurate and helpful? Is it fair to share?
Okay, so I'm going to come back to my video, my PowerPoint now, to kind of share away with you and kind of review those 6 things. So let's see what you found. First, the first one was take a closer look. Good. I'm glad you had that written down. This is all about credentials. Does this seem like a professional site? Does the source or the writer seem reliable? Have you heard it before or heard about adults talk about it? Take a closer look. Look beyond the headline was number 2. Is the news just trying to get your attention? Is there a lot of exclamation points in all caps? Here's some examples, like whatever game this guy is the best player. Oh, this classic thing, what they found next will make you cry, or what happened next you won't believe, or 19, if there's a lot of numbers in it, that's probably clickbait. That's probably not real news, guys. 3, check other sources. Are there any other reports? Are there professionals or newspapers or books that can tell you about this? If you're not sure, Google it. Does it come up on Google as well? Check your facts. We really want you to look at the date. Is this a current story? Is this current information? A lot of fake news tends to either not list an author or it'll give you a completely bogus date that is not reliable. 5, you need to check your own biases. Are your own views on the president, or your own views on global warming, or your own views on education affecting how you're reading the article, just because you disagree with something or dislike it doesn't necessarily make it false. And this is sometimes kind of the problem we see when we see politicians using the term fake news when a story covers them unfavorably or they feel that it's too biased against them. But that doesn't make something fake. It just means that you disagree personally. The last one that you should have written down was, is it a joke? Is it just kidding? For example, I always think about The Onion, which is a really funny news site. It has a lot of sarcasm, so it might be hard to understand if you're a middle schooler, but here's one I thought you would get. One of their news headlines says, "Man looks on helplessly. As a friend tells him a story he's already heard." Like, that's not news, but it's presented like news, and it's kind of funny because we've all experienced that before. But do you see how they're particularly trying to make fun of the news by pretending to look like the news? Sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference. And then that last one, which you may not have written down, trust your gut. Does it pass common sense? Does it seem accurate and fair? Make sure you really check that out or talk to an adult around you if you don't understand, especially before you share it with your friends. So what I want to do now is switch it over and play a video that Miss Green has recorded for us to walk us through the guided practice. So you'll get to meet Miss Green and see her for a little bit before it comes back to me.
Hi everyone, Ms. Green here to take you through the guided practice. So we're going to practice separating the real news from the fake news. I know you just went over this with Ms. Howard, so now let's put it into practice. So, something that I've been hearing lately from different people and on the news is that you shouldn't take ibuprofen if you contract the coronavirus. Have any of you guys heard that before? Well, I thought it was a little strange. So I'm wondering, how can I determine, is this true or is this fake? What do you think is the first thing that I should do? What do you think? All right, I hear you. So the first thing that I think we should do is take a closer look by doing a quick Google search. So I'm going to search ibuprofen and COVID-19. I'm doing this because I want to be specific about the words that I use. So I chose ibuprofen, I chose COVID-19 instead of coronavirus because I thought that using that kind of language would help me find more professional sources. Okay, so immediately my eyes were drawn to two sources. The first source says Harvard. Virginia schools are #1 in my book, and I know in Ms. Howard's book, but Harvard is a reputable source. Universities and colleges, which conduct research all the time, are generally good sources. The second thing that I see is the FDA. Anyone know what that stands for? Well, the FDA stands for the Food and Drug Administration, and it's a government agency filled with scientists and professionals. I now have two sources that I'm confident will give me good information. So what should I do next? Well, the next thing is to look beyond the headline by clicking on the sources and reading more about them. So I'm going to start with the article from Harvard first. So the first thing that I observed when I clicked on the link is the logo that says Harvard Medical School. This information is coming from doctors, which are trustworthy medical professionals. So now I'm even more confident in this source. So now let's actually see what it says. So I see that initially French doctors warned against taking a drug like ibuprofen to treat symptoms of COVID-19 or the coronavirus. But it also says that the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, says taking ibuprofen is okay. So according to this source, it's not true that you shouldn't take ibuprofen if you have COVID-19. I wonder if other sources agree. If they do, then I can be confident that this information is reliable. So let's take a look at the article by the FDA. So I also observed the logo, which is the official logo for the Food and Drug Administration. That's already boosting my confidence in this source. So what does this source say? When I read the article, I learned that the The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, doesn't have evidence that ibuprofen makes COVID-19 symptoms worse. So that means that it's okay to take ibuprofen if you have the coronavirus. This source might not use the same words as the article from Harvard, but they're in agreement with each other. Can I be sure yet that the rumor that you shouldn't take ibuprofen if you have COVID-19 isn't true? What should I do to be extra confident and really sure that this is just a rumor? What do you think? Well, let's check the facts, especially the date that the articles were written. I see that the Harvard Health article was written on March 30th, 2020. And then I see that the FDA article was written on March 19th, 2020. The article, both of these articles were written in March of this year. That's very recent. Because it's so recent, I know that it's based on the most recent scientific evidence. So I'm pretty confident that these are right and that I should trust them. All right, but just to be safe, let's check our biases. So we're going to look for some opinions. Reading the articles, I see that both of them tend to state facts, and they say where they got their information from. I really don't see any opinions. I don't see any loaded statements, and I don't see any persuasive language. So, seems like quality content to me. Just to be on the safe side, let's make sure that these aren't jokes, right? So we talked about things like The Onion that are parodies or satire sources. Well, the Harvard Medical School and the FDA, they don't sound like jokes to me. They're pretty serious. They're objective sources and they use unbiased language. They seem pretty legit. So I now feel pretty confident that it is a-okay to use ibuprofen to treat COVID-19 symptoms. So that's how we can check a source. We can see whether or not a rumor is true, whether it's false information or whether it's something that we can believe. So what your mission now is to do this on your own. So if you're in 8th grade, what we want you to do is to keep your ear out, for suspicious news stories, all right? So does it seem like it's biased, fake, or exaggerated? And if so, your job is to check your facts. So your mission is to write a paragraph, 3 to 5 sentences, so not very long, that briefly summarizes the story, explains why you thought it was suspicious, and how you fact-checked it on your own. So maybe today what you'll do is find a story and fact-check it. Then on Thursday, we're going to review how to do this again, and we're going to talk about how to write the paragraph. So again, today, find a story and fact-check it, and then on Thursday, be prepared to learn how to write the paragraph. If you're feeling confident and you want to go ahead and write it, that's great. But if you aren't, that's okay too. Some sources that you might want to pay attention to are social media sites like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anything that you use to communicate with people on a platform, like your friends or your family. You could also look at video sites like YouTube, or you can look at more traditional sites like newspapers, TV news, magazines. You can also check out things that are not quite as professional, like The Onion or a blog post. And you can also just think about, what are you hearing? What are you hearing from your friends, your family, people that you're talking to? What are they saying? Does something sound a little suspicious? If so, fact check it. If you're in 6th and 7th grade, you're also welcome to do the 8th grade mission. That would be totally fine. But if you are hoping for something for your grade level, then you can look at the Day 4 learning plan, and we have missions specific to 6th and 7th graders. If you're in 6th grade, your mission is to determine the reliability of sources from the American Revolution by specifically looking at sources from the Battle of Lexington and Concord. If you're in 7th grade, you have a mission about analyzing yellow journalism. So again, feel free to do the 8th grade mission, but if you want something specific to your content area, check out the Day 4 learning plan. All right, and I'm going to turn you back over to Ms. Howard. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Okay, so thank you, Miss Green, for that video. She got a little camera shy near the end there, but I'm really glad that we could hear from her and we could collaborate like this together. So what we're going to do now is go back to the PowerPoint. Just bear with me as I figure this out. Yeah, this one. And we'll have to zip through some slides. Oops. Thank you for your patience, guys. You know we're learning. We want to close up today by kind of thanking you for joining us, and we're really happy that you're here. I don't know about you, but after her walkthrough from Miss Green from the little video right here, I feel like really good about doing this mission myself. But we just want to remind you, like, not everything is legit, right? A parent signature, mom, due day today, like, no. This is something we talk about and deal with all the day, all our lives, every single day. So I hope you got something out of this lesson, and we will see you on Thursday for our next one. Bye-bye. See you guys.